long as any of the mics are on.
So they're closed, they can't use that, right?
One thing I want to mention.
Yeah.
For the camera. Sorry. My apologies. When you first speak, if you can, even if you're not going to be, like the louder you speak, not to yell at it, but the camera will hear you. There's a lot of echo, so if you're really quiet, sometimes it doesn't figure out where you are in the room and it doesn't track. So I've been.
We are live.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session this morning on a rainy day. Our first item of business is to go into closed session, and I have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Resolved that Council resolve itself into Committee of the Whole closed session as authorized under Section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider adoption of closed minutes of meeting held September 16th, 2020, and labor relations or employee negotiations as it relates to the contract with the Ministry of Transportation for the Howe Island Ferry.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
It was from the over the hills banana plant.
There you go. Yeah, the sun shines here all the time. Well, she's actually closer to the sun out there.
Yeah. Like the trees off James Bay. I'm surprised she doesn't go.
Yeah. In her, she should have
Taxes and everything.
Yeah.
You what?
Okay, so fair to me.
He said he was waiting for the back, right?
How you sitting?
I was wrong, it's not great, and it's just the water blown up.
Oh, really?
You know, we really should open those blinds and let the light in. I feel like I should be going to bed instead of being up.
I don't have the coffee.
Right, it's dark. But it's light on this side of.
They're electronic, aren't they?
No, other than he just said he wanted to show up for the council meeting, but he didn't know if he could get here. He didn't want to show up.
I don't like. No, we're not. Not right at this point, no.
Got it, it's fine, okay.
No, as long as we know we're
Yeah, just
live and ready to go.
if there's a slideshow or anything, just let me know when to launch it.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so you're my slide.
All right, we're back in session. Oh, okay. Just wait for a second.
Yeah, Brianna can do it.
Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Resolved that Council rise from Committee of the Whole closed session without reporting. No, there is not, Madam Warden. Moved by Councillor Higgins, seconded by Deputy Warden Vandewaal. Resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held September 16th, 2020 be adopted.
Sorry, Madam Warden, we just need you to use your mic. We are unable to hear you.
I'm sorry. That motion was carried. Now we have presentations, and our first presenter is Dr. Moore. We have certainly gotten to know Dr. Moore over the past 7 months. Brianna, you're controlling Dr. Moore's presentation?
We were not provided with a presentation. They are going to be coming up on video. I just asked Dr. Moore to put his video up. It will be one moment.
Okay, we'll wait for that.
Madam Warden, if I may.
Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for joining us.
Please go ahead.
I think Dr. Moore may be a bit predisposed right now, so I think he has provided me with direction to present in front of council, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Would I be able to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
We have it.
Great. And that shows up okay?
Yes, it does.
Great. So thank you, Madam Warden and Council, for having us here today to present about our programs as well as our budget. My name is Hugh Guan. I'm one of the directors here at Kfpl Public Health. I lead the Infectious Disease Prevention Environmental Health Division here. And Dr. Moore has directed me to present in front of Council today. So to start off with what is public health? Public health aims to promote and protect the people's health and prevent disease. And this hasn't been made more apparent than the COVID-19 pandemic this year. Our programs and services are based off the Ontario Public Health Standards, which are requirements laid out by the province about programs and services that we have to provide And this is based off the Health Protection and Promotion Act, which is provincial legislation that lists our roles and responsibilities, as well as provides us with the legislative powers to enforce certain aspects of the act. We are governed by the Board of Health, 5 whom are appointed from municipal councils around the region, and then 4 provincial appointees. Mayor Doyle is our chair, and also the representative from the County of Frontenac. I would like to also say thank you to everyone here, to councillors, to mayors, to municipal staff, to municipal services such as Frontenac Paramedics, Fairmount Homes, for all the support you have provided us during this pandemic. And I would like to give a special thanks to members of our community for being so good and keeping us at one of the lowest rates of COVID-19 in the province. Just to give a little bit of background, COVID-19 has taken up pretty much all of public health's efforts throughout this year. And we like to think of things in terms of a chain of protection within the Kfpl region. And we have formed partnerships from anywhere from hospitals to correctional facilities to the homeless and vulnerable individuals. And we have worked with every single one of these groups to prevent COVID-19 from ongoing in our community. And this diagram, upon reflection to us, does appear to represent a coronavirus with its circle and a lot of spikes, but we like to think about this in terms of a chain of protection with working with all the different partners in the community to prevent COVID-19. In terms of the structure of Kfpl Public Health, we are governed by the Board of Health for Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington. Then Dr. Moore is both our medical officer for health as well as CEO of the whole agency. Underneath, we have 5 divisions, which is newer nowadays. So the COVID-19 response division has been a new thing that is still currently being created to respond to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic throughout this year and most likely into the next year and potentially even into the year beyond that. Initially, we were in IMS structure, but due to the breadth of the COVID-19 response, we have decided to incorporate into regular services and did some moderate reorganization within the agency to be able to respond to the pandemic. Just to show a little bit about the pandemic visually, you'll see our graph here about the number of COVID-19 cases since the very beginning. Initially, in that late March, early April season, we had our initial first wave during that time, where we had many travelers, folks coming back, and some spread from there. And then for many, many months, that was low until our nail salon outbreak in July. And then,
Hugh, can I just stop you for a moment? Your slides are not moving.
Oh, they're not moving?
Still frozen on the very first one.
Oh.
So we see the PowerPoint menu, not the slides going through.
Oh, okay.
It's not in slideshow.
That is good to know. How's that?
That's much better. Thank you.
Great. So just flipping through some of the other slides, again, Ontario Public Health Standards, Health Protection and Promotion Act, Board of Health. Thank you again to the mayors, the councillors, and our municipal services and the whole community. Our chain of protection here that I was mentioning, it's much easier to see, to understand if it's visually shown. Here's our structure again, Board of Health, Dr. Moore, who's our medical officer for health and CEO, as well as our divisions, the newer one being the COVID-19 response division, just because we need to incorporate COVID-19 response into our actual routine and regular structures now, given the ongoing breadth of the response. And now visually, here's how the pandemic has been ongoing for our own community within the Kfpl region. And again, in the early or late March, April season, we had our first wave. And then in July, we had our nail salon outbreak. And then since late September, early October, we've had a little bit of a, I guess this would be a third wave in terms of reopening of the economy, post-secondary institutions opening, as well as schools opening. But again, all the transmission within our community is actually from travel outside the community, or we have linkages to the vast majority of our cases to either travel outside our community or meeting someone from outside our community. So we are very certain that there is no ongoing widespread transmission, such as in the Toronto region or in the Ottawa region. Just to give a scope, we're at a rate of about 2.8 cases of COVID per 100,000 over the last 7 days. This is 25 times less than Ottawa or Toronto. They're at about 50 to 60 cases of COVID per 100,000, just to give a sense of scale in terms of relative impact. We have one of the lowest rates of COVID-19 within all of Ontario. In terms of what the response actually has looked like in terms of numbers, we have received and responded to over 20,000 community calls. We've conducted over 170 COVID case investigations, each which takes up to 2-3 hours. And we've contacted and followed up over 1,100 contacts of COVID within our community since the very beginning. In terms of our nurse and inspection teams, we have conducted over 370 inspections across the community of just COVID-related issues. Over half of these are actually in our long-term care and retirement homes. So we've really created an iron circle around our long-term care and retirement homes. We are also in the midst and continuing on planning mass influenza clinics for our community. And we have about 30 or so arranged with our primary care partners, as well as provide by ourselves. And this continues to rise as we get more and more partnerships with our primary care community around the whole region. And we have also, since late last week, shipped over 40,000 influenza doses to primary care partners, hospitals, long-term cares, and retirement homes. Long-term care homes and retirement homes and hospitals have received 100% of their shipment and should be able to provide everyone within their facility an immunization. So we are protecting the most vulnerable with our influenza strategy. So moving on to the other side of things about the 2021 budget planning, we have to first start off with the caveat that our budget committees have not met to finalize the budget. They meet in early November to finalize the budget, but some initial assumptions our corporate service division has provided us is that we don't really expect any change to our base funding provided by the Ministry of Health for 2021, I should say. That's time mistake. So in terms of 2021, we believe that the base funding will be the same from the Ministry of Health as 2020. Anticipated increase for the municipal contribution, we anticipate to be the same as last year at around 1.5%. For the County of Frontenac, that would be about 11,000 to 12,000, given the municipal portion as well as the proportion provided by the County of Frontenac. As directed by the province, this excludes a variety of 100% funded programs by the province, including Ontario Seniors Dental, as well as the COVID-19 school health initiative. And we are also pending board approval for all of these items, which again is in early November. So these are very, very preliminary figures provided by our corporate services division. But here are some assumptions that may help in planning for the County of Frontenac. In terms of our 2020 provided funding by the ministry, this slide shows what was provided. About 70% was provided by the Ministry of Health, about 12.3 million there. And I would like to show the highlighted parts there, which are some newer 100% funded initiatives by the Ministry of Health and the province, which includes the school-focused nurse initiative, which was which was released by the province about a month or two ago, which provided us funding to hire more public health nurses to support schools as well as the overall community in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have also received word and are in the process of getting reimbursement for what are called COVID-19 extraordinary costs by the province. So these are extra costs due to the COVID-19 response incurred this year by local public health agencies, as I don't think any local public health agency in 2019 planned for a global pandemic in 2020 and therefore incurred some extra costs. And we are in the process of getting reimbursement for that. We have some indications for the 2021 year that a similar process would be included by the Ministry of Health in the 2021 year. So we are also planning within those parameters for next year. In terms of beyond COVID-19, some other funded programs by other ministries, as well as other funded sources, including shared library services from Public Health Ontario, Food for You, Food for Two, which is actually funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada, Health Links, which is funded also 100% by the Ministry of Health, as well as a variety of other funders, which connects us with our acute care and primary care sectors to share information. And then we have some funding also from the Ministry of Child, Community, and Social Services, I believe it's now called, such as Healthy Babies, Healthy Children, which is a home visiting programs, preschool, speech and language, infant hearing, blind, low vision, which are all a bit more clinical services funded by another ministry beyond the Ministry of Health. So that in all is a quick overview of what our response has been and pretty much what the activities of Kfpl Public Health has been for 2020. And we expect that to continue throughout the rest of 2020 and into 2021. We are anticipating the vaccine sometime within 2021, which will also require many partnerships and leaning across the healthcare system to provide that response. Thank you again to Madame Warden and Council for inviting us here today to present. I am open to any questions.
Thank you, Hugh. We do have one. Ron Higgins.
Thank you for the presentation, Hugh. My question is, I've seen some information and I'm not sure where I saw it, but the number of vaccines purchased by the province will only cover 30% of the population. Can you confirm that? And do you know what the number of vaccinations for flu, how much coverage it would do for your public health area?
Yes, so hearing from the province, they have purchased about 700,000 increased doses, which covers about, from my understanding, 30 to 40% of the province. They are looking into further supply chains, but locally we have actually much more than the 30 to 40% that across the province. We actually have double that. We're looking at locally providing up to 60 to 70% coverage for the whole population. In the regular year, we only have about 30 to 40% coverage. So this year we're hoping to get 60 to 70% for the community, which will provide actually very good protection against influenza across the community, especially if the most vulnerable within our community get the vaccine.
It's good to hear. Thank you, Hugh.
Bill McDonald.
Doctor, I know you've been busy with the pandemic, and I want to congratulate the health unit and their effort. I'm just wondering, this is of interest to me, has the health unit in any way, shape, or form undertaken a study to see what the effect of the sale of illegal cigarettes in the area will have on the healthcare system in the near future?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any studies like that. However, I can contact our tobacco prevention team to see if they're involved with any of those initiatives. I personally are not aware. I also see that Dr. Moore has come in and has a comment to make also. I'm just going to.
Sorry, I am wearing my mask. So just in follow up with Councillor Higgins, yeah, the province has purchased only 5.1 million doses, and that includes all doses for pharmacies for 14 million people. So that does equate to roughly 32% immunization rate, considering that children need 2 doses in some instances on their first time getting immunized. So at a population level, we're probably at around 32%. And Hugh's right, we went ahead and were very aggressive. We got 70,000 doses that we requested initially. That number could go up. And that does not include what the pharmacies will provide in our region, which is significant. The pharmacies, I've been told, are running out this week, but they're going to be reordering too. So I do hope that we'll have one of the highest immunization rates in the province. That's our goal. We don't want a twin-demic, as many people have said. We really want to minimize the impact of influenza on the health system right now. I do agree that illicit cigarettes, whether they're counterfeit or contraband, are a significant issue. The Tobacco Research Unit for the province monitors this data, and we can get that data to you. It's certainly a major issue in our region, anywhere up and down the St. Lawrence, and also in Hastings, Prince Edward in particular, given the access in that jurisdiction. So we know it continues to be an issue, and it certainly interferes with our ability to use pricing as a means of reducing tobacco usage. We haven't stopped our efforts on reducing tobacco consumption. The general trend in our population is very good, continues to be downward, but I won't be happy until we get it down. We have a tobacco elimination strategy in our community by 2030, and want to continue aggressively to get our tobacco consumption rates down below 5% by that time. So thanks very much for that question, and we'll get back to you with more detail at a provincial level. We certainly don't have the local level because it's very, very difficult to collect locally.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, again, thank you very much for all the hard work everyone's doing at the health unit. We really appreciate it. And
Thank
now
you very much for having us.
You're welcome. Now we're going to hear from Laura Carter and Chris Ridley from Kfpl Library Board.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I am the Chief Librarian and Chief Executive Officer of the Kingston Frontenac Public Library. I do have Chris Ridley here with me in my office, but I will primarily be doing the presentation. Although with large credit to her for developing and monitoring our 2020 and 2021 draft budgets. So I'm going to start with a little bit of an overview of our 2020 highlights, talk about our COVID response, and then go over our draft 2021 budgets, which will be presented to the Kingston Frontenac Public Library Board later today. Next slide. Brianna's doing my slides for me. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Before I begin, I thought I would go over the library's mission statement and our strategic goals. So our primary purpose is to make a positive difference in the lives of everyone in Kingston Frontenac. We aim to achieve this purpose by helping residents transform today's vast information resources into the solutions, facts, know-how, inspiration, and entertainment they need to learn, solve problems, read, engage with their community, and reach their personal aspirations. So the library's foundations are still, or the library's collections are still a foundational piece of our mission statement, but I think as you'll see through the presentation, our other programs and services are also integral to us pursuing this mission. Next slide. Kfpl Vision 2020, the library's strategic plan, has 4 main goals, each with a number of action plans attached. So we're actually at the end of our strategic plan, and we'll be looking to start our next process. But I wanted to highlight a few things under each of these goals. For unique, impactful services, we have highlighted the need to segment the market for our services. I believe we truly have something to offer everyone in our communities, but that's a very difficult message to market. We've completed a marketing plan and are working on the implementation of that plan. Making sure our branches are welcoming and accessible, and the redevelopment of the central branch were 2 of the main initiatives in creating difference-making spaces. For community-focused relationships, we have strengthened our partnerships, particularly with respect to programming, and continue to work on developing relationships in the communities we serve. 21st century capabilities refers both to the skills that our staff need to serve our communities and the general skills that are needed to survive in the 21st century economy. Next slide. So this year for facilities and technology, and these are primarily the county highlights, we worked to improve our Wi-Fi, particularly after we shut down in mid-March. So we kind of dragged routers across buildings to get them closer to parking lots. Where normally, we kind of want them where we're sitting in the branch, but and wherever possible, we upped our bandwidth and got the best speed possible. We continue to do that as internet service improves across the county. We look to make sure we have the best internet available. We just installed a new self-checkout machine at the Sydenham branch. We did new furniture, including an accessible service desk at the Arden branch. We installed new branch signs. So you can see in the picture the Wolf Island branch sign. We also did Howe Island and Hardington this year. And we've implemented radon testing in many of our locations. So the townships have completed some tests in their facilities. We are rotating radon detectors through some of our other facilities to make sure we're monitoring radon levels. Next slide. For programming and outreach, we moved our programs online in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This provided access to programs for people with internet at home. So it did increase the accessibility of our programs to some degree, but we recognize that internet access remains a big problem in the county. Families received storytime videos by email, and library staff developed several educational programs on our YouTube channel. Words from the Wild, which was the highlight of the summer, took kids into natural spaces across Frontenac to discover animals, plants, geology, and more. Some of our other programs are listed on that slide. Many of them were recorded for viewing later, so people can access all of them through our YouTube channel. Next slide. For adults, we provided Art Hive workshops on YouTube, guiding viewers through a variety of hands-on art projects, and we engaged audiences on Zoom with author talks and grown-up storytime. The next round of grown-up storytime starts November 9th. It runs noon to 1 on YouTube, and registration opens actually on Halloween. Our Story Me project revived this summer, asking Kingston Frontenac residents to share their experiences of the pandemic. We collected short films, poems, videos, and narrative accounts, and continue to welcome submissions from our community. Next slide. So we kind of have two phases of our COVID-19 response, our virtual services during phase 1 when we were mandated closed, and then in-person services now that we have been allowed to reopen. So all locations of the library were closed from mid-March through early June. During this time, we moved our programs online, launched an online card registration process, and worked to set up expanded access for resources such as ancestry.com, which were previously only available in the actual libraries. We started to accept return materials ahead of the launch of our curbside pickup service in early June. With approximately 50,000 items out on loan, we needed to process some of these items, get them quarantined, and get them back on shelves before we took the next step in our reopening plan. I'm very proud that we launched curbside pickup service all across the system at all 16 branches in early June. It was a bit of an ambitious plan, but I felt strongly that we needed access across our service area. Computer access was launched at the Central branch in early July, followed by in-branch service at Central, Calvin Park, and Isabel Turner branches at the end of July. The Sydenham and Pittsburgh branches opened in mid-August, with the Rideau Heights branch and the Wolf Island branch reopening in mid-September, along with Storrington and Arden. We continue to work with the townships to reopen other locations and add extra days of service for branches that are only open 1 or 2 days a week at this point. Through each phase of our reopening, we've been guided by the government's regulations in terms of the services we've been allowed to provide, by public health requirements for distancing, cleaning, and other protective measures, and the desire to keep our staff and our communities safe. Two other services that I'd like to highlight during our in-person service that we've launched are mystery packs. So those are about to go live. We recognize that in branches where we are still only offering curbside pickup, people really miss the ability to be able to browse or just discover new authors and new books. So they can place on hold, they can say, hey, can you please give me 10 mystery books, and we will choose those and check them out. So that allows patrons to discover new authors and new titles without having to search and place holds in the catalog. And finally, I'm very happy to tell you that we have launched wireless internet hotspots this week. This is supported by a grant from the Community Foundation of Kingston and area through the Laurie and Cameron Thompson Fund. We received funding for 15 hotspots and 10 Chromebooks. The Chromebooks are still on back order. There's a large demand, especially with virtual school getting off the ground this September. So the hotspots are available now, and recognizing that the need is great in the county, we're trying something new, and it is a pilot project, so we're definitely open to feedback, but there is one hotspot in each of the county branches. And then there are a few that are in the city. So if you are in Sharbot Lake, then we're hoping that you would have increased access through the dedicated Sharbot Lake hotspot. You can only reserve the Sharbot Lake hotspot, for example, and pick it up in Sharbot Lake. So this is to also minimize the amount of time that these high demand items are going to be spending in transit in between branches. Because given our courier schedule, it could be a week or even a little bit more where something is traveling from Wolf Island to Plevna, for example. So we will monitor how that's working and make some adjustments potentially, maybe by township or by our courier routes. But we're very excited to help bridge that gap while we get more permanent solutions in place for internet. Next slide, please. So here's a snapshot of some statistics in the county branches through the end of September. Please note that we were mandated to close for 12 weeks, so that greatly impacted our physical circulation of materials, visitor counts, all the usual statistics that we collect. And we have been on reduced service for 16 weeks so far. So that's a combined 28 weeks where our services have been impacted in 2020. So the 40,142 number is the physical number of items that were borrowed in the county branches, which represents about 12% of the library's overall circulation. Overall, across the system, we're at about 50% of our normal circulation of physical items for this year. But looking at the 2020 September stats versus the same month last year, we have gone back up to around 70% of our circulation. So I'm quite happy with that. In terms of the percentage of circulation, the county remained quite steady in terms of card holders and the percentage of the overall total items borrowed, which is impressive because we know that many seasonal residents or tourists, we do allow people who have cottages in the area to borrow. Those people would not have come in the same numbers this summer. Another important item I thought to highlight was the wireless internet statistics. We had 6,303 uses in the county so far this year, and that represents 21% of the total wireless internet statistics across the system. That's much higher than it was this time last year, and again speaks to the need for reliable, consistent internet and the role that the library plays in providing those services to people in the county. Next slide, please. So not surprisingly, our digital services are up given our closure of our physical branches. So far this year, we've had 1,474,620 online uses. So that does include visits to our website. It includes all of our ebook and audiobook checkouts and any use of any of our other online collection resources such as Ancestry, Mango Languages, lynda.com. There is a lot of pressure on our e-resource lines in terms of the use of the collection and the amount that it does cost the library. We're in ongoing talks, the library sector is, with publishers around the cost of ebooks and how they license them to us. And to highlight sort of one example of pricing that can be problematic for us, Hoopla is a pay-per-use system. So we limit users to 4 borrows a month because every time someone checks something out, we do get charged. So use of Hoopla is up 12.5% this year, which means that the Hoopla budget is also up 12.5%. Another thing that's actually contributing to our increased ebook and audiobook circulation is our switch to cloud library. We changed our vendors this year from Overdrive to Cloud Library. We did this because the platform fee for cloud is less expensive, so that lets us put more money into purchasing items instead of paying for the service, but primarily because that gave us access to over 100,000 titles, because we can share with the other libraries who are using the service in Ontario. So the way it works is if there's an item available in Brampton, their patrons aren't using it, they don't have it on hold, then it is available to our users to check out and read. And that's the same with our collection. If somebody is not using it in Kingston Frontenac, then it would be available to the other libraries for their patrons to use. It means our collection dollars go farther, and it means that that we have access to exponentially more resources than we did before. Our collection that we own is around 15,000 titles, and we now have access to over 100,000 titles. Next slide. So just a little reminder on how the budgets work. Going back to the amalgamation agreement in 1998, when the library was created, said the City of Kingston would be responsible for 87% of the funding, and the County of Frontenac for 13%. This does not include the facility costs, and there's some other sort of unshared costs, but that's the rough calculation with the budgets. Next slide, please. So some context for our budgets. We have the increasing demand for e-content, the rising cost of that content, our purchasing power with the impact of the value of the Canadian dollar. So some of our services are priced in American dollars, and that impacts us. And then the rising cost of service agreements. So for many of the services we subscribe to now, we do have to pay ongoing operating costs. So for instance, our integrated library system, that is the software that we use to have our patrons and our items, it's our library catalog essentially. We have agreements for support on those, and those go up every year, usually with inflation and cost of living. And many other products that we use are now ongoing sort of service agreements rather than a one-time capital cost that we own it forever. And then of course, increased cost to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're really quite stretched when it comes to facilities, cleaning, and we have put extra staff in place for mask compliance and to make sure that we don't exceed our maximum capacities. We're also facing decreased revenue as a result of the pandemic. Room rentals, photocopier fees, fines, all of those are down. Next slide. So in terms of facilities costs, the City of Kingston does provide the funding to the Library Board to operate and maintain the 5 branches in the city. The townships operate and maintain facilities for the branches in the county, and these are not part of the 8713 funding formula. The county is responsible for a percentage of operating costs for the administration and technical services at the central branch, because those do support system-wide initiatives. Next slide. So these are very much draft operating budgets. They will be discussed by the Library Board later today. In terms of our ask that we think we have for the County of Frontenac, the total would be $881,565 for 2021. So that's an increase of 2.09%. It's a little bit confusing, but it's 2.22% for the city, and that is because some of those facilities and unshared costs. We are fairly confident that our provincial funding will remain the same. It has been at the same level over many, many years. They did give us the funding much earlier this year than they have in the past, and we have not heard any indication that we will not receive it next year. So you'll notice the largest difference in the self-generated funds. There are a few things that are contributing to that. So we have, over the past few years, been experiencing decreasing fine revenues. So we were already starting with adjusting the amount of fine revenue that we expected even before the pandemic started. The pandemic, part of our response was to not charge fines. This was at the beginning to decrease the amount of in-person interactions that we had with people, and was also recognizing that fines are a barrier to library service, and some people are not able to use the library if they have overdue fines. There's a growing movement across North America and across the world to eliminate overdue fines for libraries. And so I do have a proposal going to the board tonight to eliminate children's and teens fines and adult fines over the next 2 years. So children and teens fines is $21,000 approximately. Adult fines are $38,000. The remaining drop for next year is facility rentals. We are only right now renting rooms at the central branch, but that's quite limited. And then printing and donations have also been adjusted. So if we do go ahead and eliminate the fines, the overdue fines, we would still charge for lost or damaged materials. And we are increasing the donations line, anticipating that some people will still wish to make donations sort of in lieu of fines if they do keep materials a few days overdue. Next slide. So with our expenditures, we have a 1.37% increase in staffing costs. We've actually decreased our life and long-term disability premium rates. We have adjusted for some salaries due to recent hires where people are on the grid, and we have 3 more early retirees. So all of those sort of balance out to 1.37%. We're asking for a 1.4% increase in our collection lines. Some of our products do go up every year. Things like Press Reader, lynda.com, the digital magazines. And then we try to keep up with the cost of inflation so that we aren't actually decreasing the amount that we're spending on our collections. Our system-wide costs are, again, contracted services. We're working on things like cloud backups. We have an increase we're looking at potentially increase for internet as we're able to get better internet service in some branches. And then the facilities costs, which are the City of Kingston, but I'm just including them as part of the larger budget. They're actually decreasing a little bit because utility costs are a little bit lower than we forecasted. Next slide. So for our draft capital budgets, we typically do branch revitalization every year, which the split is $87,000 for the city, 13% for the county. That $13,000, we're looking at the needs that we have for updating branch furniture or changing setups due to COVID-19, and looking at more accessible furniture for our branches, for computer stations, for service desks, things like that. So previously we've sort of said we're going to designate this for the Arden branch, for example, or for the Hardington branch. But this time we're looking at across the county, what do we need to do to continue to improve accessibility and make sure that we're responding appropriately to the COVID-19 pandemic in our spaces. Next slide. When we put our budget together, we do projections for future years. These are our projections. I mean, I think this year has taught us, subject to change. Obviously, these are based on what we know now and assumptions. So there are some things that we do know in terms of increased costs and services and capital plans that we have, but here's our best guess going forward through 2024. Next slide. So thank you very much again for inviting me to talk to you today and for your fantastic support of the library over the years. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Laura. Ron Higgins has a question.
Thank you, Laura, for presentation. I have one quick question. Do you know what the costs are that related to COVID expenses that are in your report? And how that reflects to the overall increase that you're asking for?
So we have increased our cleaning supplies for next year. I'm just looking at that line. That's about $7,500 extra in cleaning supplies. Again, that is actually a City of Kingston number. There will definitely be an impact in terms of the township's budgets, given that they are responsible for the cleaning and maintenance in the county branches.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you could provide to staff what the actual cost is for COVID expenses that you've incurred or are expecting. And the second question to follow up on that, do you have access to any provincial funding to offset COVID related expenses?
We do not. That is mostly flowed to the municipalities. So we have been in talks with the city to see if they get extra funding to offset PPE or things like plexiglass shields, and if they could assist in covering some of that for us. So I have made a note, we will get more costs to staff for this year. But no, we got our provincial grant, and that is all the money that was available to us.
Okay, so appreciate the numbers for COVID related projected expenses for the upcoming year, because we possibly can take that out of our pandemic relief fund versus a levy. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I just want to correct that this is not a library with LNA. Just the health unit ran into the public library. Thank you very much, Laura, and hope you're enjoying your first term in this crazy wild time.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to Ruth Norgard and Mitch Grange, City of Kingston, to talk about housing and social services and their draft 2021 budget. Welcome, Ruth and Mitch.
Thank you. Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Awesome. I think Brianna has also some slides for us that I hope she will be able to put up. And while we wait for that, I just wanted to mention that I have Mitchell Grange here with me, as mentioned, who is the manager responsible for housing and homelessness. And then I also have Laura Raby, who is the manager of social assistance and early years. Just like Laura before us, I will kind of do the presentation, but I just have them available as well if there are any questions. So again, I think we all have been kind of managing through a very a different year, 2020. So thanks for allowing me to speak. I will be fairly brief. Just thought it would be great to provide you with a brief overview, and maybe if you don't mind going to the next slide, Sabrina. I guess even the slide after that. I think we're all managing through this new way of working remotely. I was hoping to just highlight for those of you that might benefit from it, kind of the role as a service manager, the programming that we deliver in both the City of Kingston and the county, and specifically some county numbers, a bit of an overview of 2020, and then looking ahead to 2021, both on the budget side and the programming sides. The one challenge, and again, kind of somewhat similar to public health, is that our budgets or the city kind of budget cycle has been pushed to early 2021. So we do have some very high level assumptions, but don't have obviously the specific county budget ready for you today. So on the next slides, I just wanted to highlight and remind kind of County Council about the role. I know there's a lot of text on this slide, But really, as a city or as a city, we, the Housing and Social Services Department is a service manager for a variety of the provincially kind of prescribed programs available to both the residents of the city of Kingston and of course the County of Frontenac. So these services are delivered by staff at the Housing and Social Services Department, both in the city and in the county, and also through our funded agencies. There's really three primary services that residents in the county can access. The first one is the Social Assistance Ontario Works Income Assistance Program, and under that also the ability to use discretionary residency benefits, for instance, if people have rent arrears or utilities arrears or risk of homelessness. The second piece, and I'm sure many of you have heard much about that in the last 8 months or so, is the housing and homelessness programming. So not only do we manage the social housing portfolio, we also fund the homelessness services, both prevention of homelessness, but also supporting people that are homeless. And we work on a variety of affordable housing projects, including home ownership and Kingston Frontenac Renovates, which is quite well used as well in the county. The third area is childcare and early on, where we provide families with subsidies if they require subsidies to access childcare, depending on their income. And we have obviously funding, we fund service providers to reduce the cost of childcare. And we have an early on program that provides drop-in programming for parents and their children between 0 and 6. Obviously, things have been a little bit different this year. So most of our services have moved to a more online and digital service delivery. Our offices have not, our office in the city of Kingston has been, or we've all been providing services ongoing, but we definitely have changed the way how clients access our services and provided more options. I guess on the next slides, I just wanted to highlight some numbers of services provided in the county. So on the social assistance side, the full caseload that we have on average, and it has gone down quite a bit in the last year for probably a variety of reasons, including various benefits that came out because of the COVID pandemic. But on average, we have close to 2,400 caseloads every month. And for the county specifically, that's about 239 on average. So 239 people would, or our files would be specifically for members of the county. We have offices in Sydenham and Charlotte Lake, but obviously at this point, due to COVID-19, they are not open to the public, but we still have case managers that are actively working with members of the county that are on the caseloads. For housing and homelessness, we are mandated as a service manager to manage about 2,000 units of social housing in the community, and about 79 of them are in the county specifically, and I just highlighted where they are. So that obviously continues to be a key service in the county. In 2020, we did have a change in the homeless services provider in the county. This moved from Southern Frontenac to the Salvation Army, and they have recently opened an office in Verona, but also are providing homelessness services across the county, just like Southern Frontenac has been doing that in the past. On the affordable housing development, as I mentioned, there are two key programs that typically members of the county access as well. The first one is the low-income homeowner urgent repair, the Kingston Frontenac Renovates program, which really allows people to access funds for any repairs and accessibility issues. For 2020, those numbers have been a bit lower than regularly for reasons that I think everybody can appreciate. So I wanted to just give you an overview of the 2019 dollars that have been invested in the county. And the second program that we offer in the county as well as in the city is the home ownership down payment program. And again, in 2019, we had two purchases in the county with subsidy from this program. The next slide, please. So for childcare and early on, and I do apologize, I know this is a busy slide, but I just wanted to highlight that, again, as a service manager in the county, we provide subsidies to families and service providers to reduce the cost of childcare. And again, for 2019, because 2020 obviously had a very significant number of closed or time where services were not provided, we paid about $60,000 in subsidies to parents, which would be equivalent to about 1,500 days of childcare in the county. We were able to serve 91 families and with that 129 children. We have we're providing general operating funding for the rural Frontenac Childcare Center and before and after care at Renewal and Elginburg. The early on program, again, has been closed for quite a number of months in 2020. However, we were able to provide online services and are now slowly reopening this for families, both in the county and the city. In a normal situation, programming would be offered in a wide range of areas in the county. In January of 2020, which obviously was the kind of normal quote unquote month for the county, we had about 556 children visit the early on program in the county and 374 adult visits. So it's been really well utilized as well in the county, which is fantastic. So on the next slides, just looking ahead in 2021 and the budgets. So as I mentioned, unfortunately, we at the city are moving the budget deliberations, so I would not have an exact number yet, but I just did put up the numbers for 2020 for the 3 different areas, which is a total of $1.9 million. And I don't want to make any promises, but based on what we see moving forward, we know that on the OW side, we are seeing a slight decline in the budgets, especially in preparation of some of the provincial changes expecting in 2022. For this housing and homelessness budgets, as we know that there are no planned social housing capital projects for 2021, we also see a decline there. And we do anticipate a slight increase in the childcare administrative budget, again, due to some provincial funding formula changes. So in a nutshell, we do anticipate that, at this point, the budget will be fairly similar as 2020. Next slide, please. Like I said, I am fairly brief. I can talk for a few hours, but I'll kind of try to keep it at a high level. On the programming side for 2021, there's kind of 3 main areas that we see that are going to take a lot of our focus. The first one, again, I'm sure you've been aware of kind of all the different implications on our vulnerable community, resulting in more people camping outside in the Bell Park encampments, but also elsewhere. We really want to take this as an opportunity, and also the fact that we have our service agreements with our various funded agencies are coming to an end mid-2021. We will be really focusing on the full homelessness system review, and we'll also really want to make sure that we obviously include the county expertise and lived experience in that review. So you will probably hear a little bit more about that in the next couple of months. We also, and you might remember that about a year ago, we talked to County Council about the early years strategy that we were developing. This was supposed to be done earlier this year, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic and all the different changes in childcare, we have put that on a pause, and we will start up that process again in 2021, because again, I think we've learned a lot of lessons around childcare and early years services because of the pandemic. And then the last piece I just wanted to highlight, and again, I anticipate that this at some point would come back to County Council in a presentation, is that we are working on or anticipating a fairly significant renewal process in the social assistance field. We are working obviously with the province to work through those changes that will really, in a nutshell, be some services will be uploaded to the province, as in, some kind of general services such as intake of clients, but there also will be a stronger focus on life stabilization of clients and more referral and partnership with other community agencies to really work towards a holistic support of people that are in need of social supports. Again, lots to talk about there, but would love to come back to you and share some more information on that when it becomes available. So I recognize, and next slide please, that that is very short, but I figured it would be good to just highlight what we do, what we have seen, what we are doing moving forward. Happy to take any questions, and just added my contact information here as well in case you have any questions afterwards. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ruth. Any questions or comments? Lots of information and numbers to get straight. Ron Vanderwall.
It's fairly brief. I guess I see you have lots of concerns your way with what you do in the city, but I didn't even know there was an office in the rural landscape. Is that in McMullen then? Or where is that office from the Salvation Army in Verona?
I'm not 100. I believe it opens in September. I'm just looking at my colleagues here.
I think it's down by Ravel's, is it not? The side
I'm
street.
happy to give you the address and get that back to you, because I know they just recently opened their office. What I would say though is that their service is also very much a service that they go out and meet people where they are at. So it's not necessarily people having to go to Verona for services. It is just more like a home base, but I'm happy to share the contacts or the office information to county for reference. But it's very—
Thank you. And maybe our staff knows, but I didn't know. So if we were referencing somebody to it,
yeah,
I didn't know it was there.
Absolutely.
Well, it just happened.
Yeah. It opens in August or September, and they probably also have some COVID specific requirements. So happy to give you that information.
And just very glad to hear that the workers actually go into the home, because from Plevna to Verona is still a long way. Yeah, very good. Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much, Ruth, and we'll keep in touch and keep the information flowing. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, proclamations, GIS Day.
Moved by Councillor Higgins, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Whereas Geography Awareness Week is November 15 to 21, 2020, and whereas International Geographic Information Systems Day is November 18, 2020, and whereas Geography Awareness Week promotes GIS and geography literacy, and whereas GIS is an important part of geography awareness, and whereas the County of Frontenac is committed to expanding GIS awareness throughout the county in order to showcase real-world applications with GIS, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac hereby proclaims November 18, 2020 as GIS Day in the Frontenac County.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Motion to move into the Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor Fowler, that Council adjourn and meet as Committee of the Whole Council with the warden in the chair.
With the
Sorry,
warden?
that should be Deputy Warden now.
Warden.
My apologies.
Yes, Deputy Warden's doing the work today. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, Ron.
Thank you. I'm just a little bit disappointed that we didn't have School Bus Driver Appreciation Day today as a proclamation, but that's all right. Okay, there are no briefings, no unfinished business, no recommended reports. The report of the Planning Advisory Committee. Is there any resolutions or anything, or this is just a report, Jeanette?
So sorry, just before the report for the Planning Advisory Committee, you still do have reports from the council liaisons if they wanted to offer them?
I got my page upside down. Yep, okay. You're right, sorry. Information reports from County Liaison, Emergency and Transportation, Councillor Higgs.
Thank you. On October the 8th, I had a phone meeting with Gail Chevalier, Transportation Services, and Kevin Farrell. The new honk ferry collection system for visitors is working very well. The honk system works without using and handling cash. This system is being used for both of our ferries. Passengers wishing to pay with cash are being asked to have the exact amount ready and to wear a face mask when the ferry operators come to collect. And I got a report here that as of a couple of days ago, that the county had collected $1,581 on the honk system, and the township ferry had collected $354. So the system is working. My report on the paramedics is very brief in that the paramedics have been busy at the Beach Grove Assessment Center, and the numbers wanting to have a test have increased, and the tests are being done by appointment only. And be advised that the call volumes for the paramedics are back to normal. That concludes my report.
Thank you. I was going to say it's almost getting to be a cashless society anyway. Try getting $5 out of a child of actual cash. Nobody carries it hardly anymore. So that's it's obviously a good move to move away from it. Nobody wants to handle it hardly. Long-term care, Fairmount Home, Councillor Fowler. Okay. Corporate services, Councillor McDonald.
I have no report. I'll refer you to the information provided to council by Alex yesterday.
Thank you. Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Ravel.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. So a number of items, starting with planning. The communal servicing is still working with the governance committee. So the next stage that they're looking at probably is to interview some of the work plans that municipalities would like to incorporate into this. And they're going to interview a selection of committees that or municipalities that have set up utility or municipal corporation as one of the opportunities to finance this work. Next item, the Ardoch Community Condominium Development. The draft was reviewed by County Planning Advisory Committee on Wednesday, and there's apparently a recommendation coming forward this meeting, if it has not already done so in my absence. The planning work plan for 2021 was on the agenda at the PAC committee. So there's a fair bit of work to moving forward in the 2021 work plan. October planning applications. So far this month, they've dealt with 22 planning applications, which include severances, minor variances, and rezonings, which is the highest number of county applications that the office has ever managed. Moving on to economic development. The KMP Trail, they're just doing some minor finishing on the last section from Sharper Lake to Clarendon, putting in trail markers, speed limit signs, etc. The Open Farms event this year was held virtually, and the indications right now are that both the people who viewed the site and the farmers are quite happy with how it went. There will be a presentation to County Council in full on the November meeting. They're also looking at working on some shop local videos that are being worked on this year that will help our local businesses. strategic plan process for Southeastern Ontario tourism. Richard is working on that. There's been a small grant available that might be applicable for both North and Central Frontenac through the Ontario Highlands Tourism Organization. Richard presumably will have other details for those municipalities if they wish to participate in those. That's my report.
Any questions? Kingston Frontenac Library Board update, Councillor Revelle. We already got it from Miss Carter this morning. If you've got more information to add to that, then no, but go ahead.
The only other thing was I had reported the last time that largely all of the branches were fully open, and that wasn't quite true. There's some reopening that is still being staged, in part due to ensuring the proper cleaning is being taking place in some of the branches. There is a meeting this evening, which the board will be looking at the draft budget for approval tonight, and I will be attending that one virtually. That's my report.
KFL&A Public Health Board update, Councillor Doyle.
Yes, as Dr. Kwan said this morning, the focus still is almost entirely on COVID-19, which again, as he said, we're amongst the best in Ontario with 2.8 cases per 100,000 people. We're starting our budget process, even though it was shown a 1.5% increase. That is the most optimistic, and I suspect it'll be around 2%. We have our first committee meeting on November 9th, and we hope to pass the budget at the board meeting on November 25th. So we'll have the numbers in time for our final discussion at this table. So thanks very much again for all the support across the municipalities in the Kfpl region, and that is the reason that we're experiencing the lowest rate in Ontario. It takes the whole area, and I think these weekly meetings that we have with Dr. Moore are worthwhile just to keep the focus on it. So thanks again.
Housing Homelessness Committee update, Warden Smith.
Ruth did my report for me. Thank you.
Nice move. Food Policy Council of Kingston, Frontenac, Lansing, and Councillor Higgs.
Okay, this is my big announcement. If you were watching CNN, you'd say this is a breaking report.
Breaking.
Last night in the Legislative Assembly in Ontario, the Food Council policy had our motion in second reading. This is bill number 216. This is a bill to amend the Education Act with respect to food literacy. And I'll just give you a brief overview of that bill. The Education Act is amended to provide that that curriculum guidelines shall require that courses of study be developed in experimental food literacy education and healthy eating for grades 1 up to grade 12. The courses of study must ensure that students are given opportunities to grow food, prepare food, and learn about local foods. Every board, school board that is required to provide instruction in the courses of study and to provide training and support for teachers and other staff of the board. Completion of the courses of study are a requirement for obtaining the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, the Secondary School Graduation Diploma, and the Secondary School Honor Graduation Diploma. And this was written by our Food Policy Council. The other very brief announcement is that we thank the Frontenac County for their support of the Food Council. You had given us a donation of $500. We are now requesting in writing from the City of Kingston and the Lennox and Addington County for their support, which they haven't given us yet, to help pay for the general expenses of website hosting, printing, literature, letter writing, mailings, and advertising. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We are going to move to reports of the Planning Advisory Committee, and there's two fairly heavy reports on there. Does anybody need a break?
Yep.
I just wondered if anybody needed a washroom break, so I was going to ask before we move into that, if that's okay. Then we'll take 5 minutes, and it means 5 minutes. to walk us through that, or we're just going to do it on a, okay, go ahead.
So there's just a motion here through you, Deputy Warden Vanderwall. It's moved by Councillor Higgins and seconded by moved by Councillor Higgins, seconded by Councillor Doyle, that the report received from the Planning Advisory Committee be received and adopted. And there's 2 reports on there. One is an application for draft plan of vacant land condominium approval, file 10 CD 2012/001, located at part of lots 23, 22, and 23, concession 1 and 2, geographic township of Clarendon, township of North Frontenac, County of Frontenac. And the other report is the Director of Planning and Economic Development 2021 work plan.
Let's separate those two because I think there's going to be different discussions on different portions. Is that fair enough?
That's fine.
So on the first one, Ardoc Lake, is there any questions or comments for the planning? No, everybody's happy with it now. Good. All in favor? Carried. On the Planning Advisory Committee, Planning and Economic Development Work Plan, is there any comments or questions for the planning department? Oh. Okay, I guess that wasn't as serious as I thought. All in favor then? Carried. Let's see.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Higgins, that council revert from Committee of the Whole Council to Council.
All in favor? Carried. My work here is done. That was pretty easy.
Sorry, that came up too fast. I'm still chewing. Okay. Reports of the Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Deputy Warden Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Higgs, that the report of the Committee of the Whole Council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Any motions or notices of motions to be given? None? Communications? Lots of them? Any other business to come before council this morning? It's still morning. Public question period? Nobody from the public has anything? Bylaws, general bylaw and confirming bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor McDonald, resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce bylaw A that has been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaw A be read a first and second time.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor McDonald, resolved that bylaw A be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. Nothing else to come before council. We are adjourned.
So moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor Higgins, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 11:18 a.m.
Shall we get 10 minutes between now and the next meeting, or shall we just go right into our next meeting? Okay.